There is a certain moment that rolls around for most of us, usually right when a man crosses over the crest of his mid-40s. It is a quiet realization where something fundamentally shifts deep down inside. Money stops being just a simple math problem you try to solve on a computer screen. It changes into something else entirely. It turns into a mirror. By the time we finish our talk today, you are going to see your finances and your life choices in a completely different light. You will understand exactly how to stop chasing a target that keeps moving on you, so you can start building a life that actually fits the second half of your time here.
Think back to when you were in your 20s. Things were pretty simple back then, weren't they? You just wanted to make a little more cash, spend some of it, and hope it all worked out down the line. Then your 30s hit. That whole decade was driven by pure momentum. Career growth, slightly bigger paychecks, buying nicer stuff, maybe getting a house or having kids. You were just running hard, keeping the wheels spinning. You were focused entirely on the climb, never really stopping to look at the view. But at 45, the questions change. They get quiet, and they get very uncomfortable. You stop asking how to get rich. Instead, you find yourself looking at the walls of your life and asking, what am I actually doing all of this for? Look, this isn't some slick investing guide. I am not standing here to pitch you a spreadsheet, a master class, or some secret system. This is just a straight, quiet conversation. It is the kind of brutally honest talk with yourself that most of us spend years avoiding. We are going to look at lifestyle creep, the debt we carry, and the heavy pressure of family. We need to talk about the quiet, persistent anxiety that sits right in your stomach when you do not know what the word enough actually means for your life. Most men run away from this specific reflection because it forces them to look closely at their choices. But if we don't look at it now, well, the second half of life gets very heavy, very quickly. Let's just sit with it for a minute and clear out the noise. Let's get into the first big issue we have to face. We have to admit that lifestyle creep is real, and it is incredibly sneaky. It never shows up looking like wild, reckless spending. It doesn't look like a midlife crisis or throwing cash away on things you know are foolish. No, it shows up in your life as justified upgrades. We tell ourselves we deserve a nicer place to live now that we are older and have worked hard. It is safer for the family to drive a newer vehicle with a reliable warranty. The kids need to be enrolled in these specific travel sports, these private lessons, these after-school activities. I work hard. I should be able to enjoy it. Individually, when you take those choices one by one, none of them are crazy. They make perfect sense when you buy into them in the moment. But collectively, they quietly lock you into a massive level of income that you cannot easily step away from. You end up building a cage out of very nice, very comfortable things. The question you need to ask yourself right now isn't whether you can afford the monthly payment. The real question, the one that actually matters, is a hard one to swallow. If you had to earn less next year, would your whole life fall apart? Think about that for a second. Let it sit in the room. That is the exact line most men never bother to check until it is too late. And here's the real thing about it. Lifestyle creep isn't just about the physical stuff you buy or the bills you pay. It is about the identity you build around that stuff. It is the version of yourself that needs the clean, shiny car in the driveway just to feel like a successful man when you look out the kitchen window.
It is the parent who measures love by how much they can provide or how many checks they can sign for camp and equipment. You know what happens if you keep that loop going? You wake up at 47 years old and you realize you aren't actually working toward a goal anymore. You were just servicing a lifestyle. You are turning the wheels every single day just to maintain a standard of living that is supposed to prove to the neighborhood that you made it. It's a heavy way to live, running just to stay in place. Now let's talk about debt. We need to get completely honest about it without beating ourselves up. By the time you reach 45, the debt you carry usually has a long backstory.
It wasn't caused by stupidity. It wasn't because you were throwing money around wildly at a casino or acting reckless. Usually, it was about survival, family, or a divorce. It was about trying to keep life moving forward during some incredibly chaotic years. Maybe it was medical bills that nobody saw coming. Maybe it was supporting your parents when they couldn't support themselves anymore. Or maybe it was saying yes to your kid's college tuition when you really should have sat down and figured out a different way.
But here is the hard truth we have to face when we look in the mirror. Debt isn't just a financial weight on your monthly spreadsheet. It acts like a psychological leash. It keeps you saying yes to work you outgrew 5 years ago. It stops you from taking risks you actually want to take with your career or your time. It leaves you feeling permanently behind, even when you look at your life objectively and realize you are doing okay. The goal here isn't shame. The goal of this whole process is clarity. Write down what you owe. Write down why it happened. Look at what it is costing you emotionally, not just what it takes out of your bank account monthly. Debt loses a massive amount of its power over your mind the moment you stop pretending it is invisible. Honestly, most guys our age never do this. They just carry the debt around like background noise. It becomes this constant, low-level hum of stress that they have just learned to ignore as they go about their day. Except you aren't actually ignoring it. You are just managing it poorly. We sit here in the silence of our own heads, pretending the weight isn't there, while our shoulders are quietly giving out under the load. And then there is the pressure. At 45, you are often stuck right in the middle of the sandwich. You have kids who need help longer than expected. At the exact same time, you have parents who are aging faster than you planned for. You get this heavy, constant sense that you are the buffer. You feel like the only thing standing between everyone you love and absolute chaos. This is where money stress becomes something much deeper. It becomes identity stress. You don't just want security for your own future anymore. You want to make sure nobody falls if you take a step back or slow down. You feel this massive weight of responsibility pressing down on your chest every single morning. The hard question we have to answer is this: which responsibilities are real and which ones are assumed? Not every future problem is yours to prepay for. Sacrificing your own stability doesn't actually make you more responsible. It doesn't protect them. It just makes you exhausted. It makes you resentful. It turns you into the guy who can't stop working because too many people are counting on paychecks you aren't sure you can keep delivering. I am not saying stop helping the people you love.
I am saying stop assuming you have to solve every single problem before it happens. Your kid's first apartment? It doesn't need to be nice. They will survive. Your parents might qualify for benefits you haven't even researched yet. Your spouse might actually be fine with living with less if you just sat down and had the conversation. But you won't know until you stop carrying everything alone. We think we can just muscle through everything with pure grit. But grit doesn't fix a broken balance sheet. You have to talk about it.
Most men I talk to, they aren't actually chasing money. Not really. When you strip away the layers, they are chasing relief. Relief from anxiety. Relief from feeling behind. Relief from the fear that they will run out of time or options before the game is over. So here is the exercise most people skip. Instead of asking how much you should have, ask yourself, what does enough allow me to stop worrying about? Think about that deeply tonight. Enough might mean sleeping through the night. It might mean turning down work you hate, having time to take care of your body before it breaks down, knowing one bad year won't ruin you. Enough is not a number you brag about to other guys. It is a level of money that lets you exhale. If you don't define it, you will keep moving the goalpost forever. I see this constantly with guys in their 40s. They hit a savings target and immediately recalculate. They say, well, that is good, but what if the market crashes? What if the kids need grad school? What if I get sick? What if? At some point, you have to decide what enough actually means. Not enough to never worry about anything ever again. That is completely impossible. You need enough to handle the likely scenarios without falling into panic. Enough to make a choice that isn't purely about money. Enough to say no to something that pays well but makes you miserable. That is a number worth knowing. It gives you your life back. Here is the uncomfortable realization most men hit in their 40s. More money doesn't fix a life you don't like. It just funds it more efficiently. The real money conversation is about alignment. Does how you earn match how you want to live your days? Does your spending reflect your values or your stress? Are you building flexibility, or are you just building higher overhead? Sometimes the smartest financial move isn't growth. It is simplification. Less stuff, fewer obligations, more margin in your schedule. You reach a point where adding more income means adding more complexity, more tax implications, more things to manage, more ways to feel like you aren't doing it right. And meanwhile, the thing you actually want is simpler. You want time. You want energy. You want to not feel like everything is hanging by a single thread. Maybe the answer isn't making more. Maybe it is spending less. Maybe it is moving somewhere cheaper. Maybe it is telling your kids they are getting loans instead of a free ride. Maybe it is admitting that the house is too big and too expensive, and you only bought it because you thought you were supposed to look successful. These are not fun conversations to have on a weekend, but they are the honest ones. They are the talks that change the second half of your journey. The goal here isn't
early retirement or some perfect number on a spreadsheet. The real win at 45 is agency. The ability to make choices without panic. The freedom to pivot when life changes. The confidence that you are not one crisis away from collapse. Having the money talk with yourself at 45 isn't about being perfect. It is about being honest enough to stop chasing a moving target. It is about starting to build a life that actually fits the second half. And that conversation, it is probably long overdue. So tonight, grab a notebook, pour a drink you actually enjoy, and start asking yourself the questions you have been avoiding. What do you actually owe? What are you working so hard for? What does enough look like? What would you do differently with your days if you weren't so scared? You don't need all the answers today, but you need to start asking. If this conversation helped you clear some of the fog tonight, subscribe for more like this. We will keep talking.